My review of Led Zeppelin II. It was released in 1969, produced by Jimmy Page. So this was the second Led Zeppelin album I ever bought, and the first one I ever heard. I went over to a friend's house and we were listening to music and stuff, and he's like, "Hey, I just got this. You gotta listen to it." So, my first impression of them was kind of that, like, I heard the name Led Zeppelin before, and I guess I'd always kind of imagined bands as being like heavier than what they were, and I didn't really realize quite like how old this album was at the time, because I remember like I was listening to a lot of like AC/DC, like Back in Black and stuff at the time, and I remember thinking that this sounded a lot older when I heard it, and so I was kind of surprised at this album the first time I heard it, and I wasn't all that into the album at first. I mean, I didn't dislike it or anything, but it kind of wasn't my favorite thing that I'd been shown, at least not right off the bat, and I just have a really clear memory of that. When I bought the album, it was, I don't remember how long it was later. I remember it was, I was going to see my first concert, which was a Megadeth concert, and it would have been 2007, and we stopped at Walmart on the way there, and I ended up buying this. We looked at the CDs, and I bought this because I wanted to hear Ramble On, because I had it stuck in my head. I could probably heard it, I don't know, on the radio or something, or to like get it stuck in my head. I don't remember why it was stuck in my head, but I had it stuck in my head, and I was just, so I bought this. And as far as this album goes, like compared to the first album, I think that it has somewhat of like a darker sound to it. I don't know, it's a little kind of like grittier than the first album. I think it's still like really cool the way it sounds. I can hear like all kinds of just little details with like every instrument on here, I feel like, but it's just got this kind of like, I don't know, a little bit of a kind of darker, grittier edge to the sound on this album. It starts with Whole Lotta Love, which I'm pretty sure is probably the first Led Zeppelin song I ever heard, because I don't have any memory of hearing any of their songs before listening to this album, because like I didn't grow up listening to rock radio at all. So yeah, this was probably the first Zeppelin song I ever heard, and I remember being kind of like, I liked the guitar at the time. I think the long kind of middle section with all the weird stuff going on kind of threw me off a little bit at first, but now I like that. And I mean, it's never really going to be my favorite Led Zeppelin song, but it's definitely one of their classic songs, and I can see why, and it's a great way to start the album. The second song, What Is and What Should Never Be. This one, I think, if I remember right, I liked more than Whole Lotta Love the first time I heard the album. I can't exactly remember if that first time I heard it, if we listened through every song or if we skipped around some, and I really can't remember, but I kind of think we listened through the whole album. But yeah, this one, I've always liked John Paul Jones's bass in it, and it's got kind of like softer and louder parts of the song, which is just, it's cool how Zeppelin did that. I know Jimmy Page always wanted to have different kind of like dynamics and stuff, and the whole kind of light and shade thing in their music, and that definitely gives them a lot of their, I don't know, just, it's one of the things that makes them stand out for me, because they're not like always heavy or always soft. They just, kind of do a variety of things. Third song, The Lemon Song, is kind of them doing one of their, like, borrowing from a lot of blues songs. I think it's really good. Just the whole band is really just kicks ass on this whole album. Really, all of their playing's great. You can just hear all the little crazy things Bonham does on his drums on this song. The fourth song, Thank You, slower song, but it still kind of just rocks because it's Zeppelin. And John Paul Jones does some really cool organ stuff on it. Fifth song, Heartbreaker, another really strong song, and it kind of fades into the sixth song, Living, Love and Made, which, from what I understand, if I remember right, was kind of a throwaway track for them, and I don't think that like Jimmy and Robert like it that much or something, but I actually think that it's pretty good because I mean, it's short, it's catchy, rocks, so I've always liked that one. Seventh song, Ramble On, was for a long time my favorite track on this album. Like I said, it was the reason I bought this album was because I wanted to listen to Ramble On. And I was a big Lord of the Rings fan growing up, so I think the line about Gollum always kind of made me laugh. And really like John Paul Jones's bass playing again in this one. I mean, John Paul Jones on this whole album is just like he's all over on just great parts, and just a really good album, like bass wise. I feel like, yeah, just a really cool song. Though probably not my favorite song on the album anymore, but that's probably just because I've listened to it too much. The eighth track, Moby Dick, the drum solo from Bonham, and I mean, Bonham's a great drummer. I like the guitar parts at the beginning. I think that there's some cool guitar bits in it before it goes into the drum solo. I'm not big on listening to just drum solos that often. I mean, like I don't usually listen to it on its own unless I'm listening to the whole album. But pretty good. I kind of like Toad a little bit better, but I'll get to that when I review Cream. Anyway, the ninth and final track, Bring It On Home. This one, I remember, was always the song that I would skip when I was younger. I probably listened to Moby Dick more times than I listened to this growing up, and it was really because of the kind of beginning of it. And that's still like my least favorite part of the song, but I don't think I listened to this song all the way through the first time I heard the album, because I just know I always kind of stopped at that part. But when it kind of kicks in with like the main riff and stuff, it's really cool, and just at that point it kind of becomes my favorite song on the album. And I don't know, maybe I'm like really into this song now because it was the song that I used to not listen to. But now I just really think it kicks ass. So still not a huge fan of the way it kind of opens, but just a really good way to close the album. So yeah, Zeppelin II. I mean, it was actually a pretty good first Zeppelin album to hear. I wasn't like huge into them right after listening to this, but it definitely got me like curious to hear more Zeppelin, and I ended up buying Zeppelin IV, I think probably a few months after. So yeah, just a really strong second album, and it kind of, I don't know if I don't know if I could say that it improves on the first one in any way, because I don't know, they're just both really great, really solid albums. But I feel like the kind of like darker, kind of grittier tone of this album, and then like throwing in the songs like Ramble On with the kind of like mystical ramblings part and stuff, just makes it a little more like Zeppelin-ish than the first album. It's got like a little bit more of their identity, with a kind of like, I don't know, darker, mystical side of the band coming out more, that I think makes it just a little bit better than the first one. But just a really great album.